I felt their doubt before I ever heard it. I saw it in the way my classmates' eyes slid past me when grades were posted, as if my name, Rachel Whitaker, were a smudge on the page. I tasted it in every whispered joke about the small town I came from, as if a girl from a trailer on the outskirts of Cleveland could never be more than the sum of her beginnings. But the moment it became weaponized truth was the night of the senior awards banquet, when Coach Reeves called the whole auditorium to silence and said, "Some people just aren't cut out for greatness as Rachel, honey, maybe stick to bookkeeping." Laughter roared around me like wildfire, and I held my breath so it wouldn't escape as a sob. 12 years later, that mockery still burned under my ribs. I had clawed my way through college gigs in greasy diners, fought through late-night coding classes, and survived a failed engagement to a man who said ambition like it was a dirty word. My resume was a history of near successes and slammed doors. The stinging chorus of never make it haunted every job interview, every apartment application, every empty bank account notification. And now, here I was, the final speaker before tech titan Garrett Kincaid, standing backstage at the Global Impact Summit with sweaty palms, wondering if the crowd would even stay in their seats long enough to hear a nobody like me. If you've ever experienced something like this, please hit like and subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Rachel, I'm 27, and I design adaptive communication devices for kids whose voices the world can't hear. The idea was born the summer my niece Ellie lost the ability to speak after a car accident. Doctors flooded us with jargon while Ellie stared in terrified silence. I promised her, hand on her trembling shoulder, that I'd find a way to let her laughter back into the room. That promise became WhisperLink, a wearable that translates neural signals into synthesized speech in real time. Bold, brilliant, and utterly unfundable, at least according to every venture capitalist in a 2,000-mile radius. Too niche, they said. Too emotional. Great cause, zero margins. But I kept going, moonlighting at a shipping warehouse to pay patent fees, soldering prototype boards on my coffee table until dawn, and pitching the device at conference after conference. Each rejection felt like another vote for Coach Reeves's prophecy. Yet every time Ellie flashed me a thumbs up with her tiny brace-scarred hand, I remembered why the fight mattered. The summit was supposed to be my Hail Mary. A scholarship covered the ticket, but the flight wiped my savings. I landed in San Francisco at 3 a.m. with one suitcase, one prototype that still smelled like flux, and one chance: impress a panel of investors before Garrett Kincaid's keynote. The agenda placed me as the last emerging innovator of the morning. Everyone told me that meant the hall would empty as people dashed for lunch and prime seats for the Billionaire's talk. I taped my notes inside my blazer anyway, because sometimes you show up to a gunfight with a paper shield and hope your conviction's enough to stop bullets. Backstage lights buzzed overhead while a volunteer clipped a mic to my collar. My heart thudded so hard the microphone hissed. I caught my reflection in a steel door, a woman in a borrowed navy suit, freckles dusted by stress, eyes blazing with a stubborn mix of terror and defiance. Mom once called that look my fire starter gaze, because when everyone else blew cold, I struck sparks. The speaker before me, a polished VR fitness guru, rapped with thunderous applause. He winked at me on his way off stage, like we shared some secret of effortless charm. I nearly laughed. Charm? All I had was a promise to a little girl and a lifetime of people telling me no. Sometimes that's enough. A stagehand whispered, 30 seconds. I closed my eyes and drifted into a memory, Ellie's hands fumbling across letters on a bulky tablet, her frustration boiling into tears. WhisperLink resting on her temple for the first time. The mechanical voice stuttering, glitching, and then shaping her first word in months, hi. In that fragile syllable lived every sunrise I'd waded through, every loan I'd begged for, every tear I hid in the warehouse bathroom during midnight shifts. I inhaled the scent of solder and coffee grounds, exhaled a prayer, and stepped into the lights. The glare swallowed me. Rows upon rows of faces blurred together, corporate sharks in tailored suits, bright-eyed students, cynics scrolling phones. A countdown flashed red, 0:10. I raised the device to the mic stand. WhisperLink, I began, was born from silence. The sentence trembled, true as bone. I let the pause stretch, 2 seconds, 3, until even the scrolling cynics looked up. Silence, I said again, can crush a spirit faster than any cage. My niece learned that before her 8th birthday. Screens behind me lit with Ellie's shy smile. Someone in the second row covered their mouth, maybe they had a niece, too. I told them about hospital corridors echoing with unspoken fears, about teachers shrugging because there was no budget for specialized tech. I told them about solder fumes in my studio apartment and eviction notices taped over blueprints. I told them about the night I sold my grandmother's locket online to buy reef-safe silicone for the skin contact sensors. Every word felt like peeling back armor, but the truth had to bleed if it was going to breathe. If this part hit you hard, leave a comment and tell me what you would have done. I slipped WhisperLink onto my own head. Now, I murmured, I want you to hear what Ellie hears. Neural signal detection requires calibration, but I'd trained it with my EEG patterns, too. The hall fell so quiet I heard the air vents hum. My thoughts flashed onto the giant screens, rendered in gentle lavender text, I believe in impossible miracles. The audience gasped. I thought of my niece and formed the words, your voice matters. WhisperLink spoke them, a warm synthetic alto that resonated like sunrise in a cathedral. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've ever felt underestimated. I scanned the first 3 rows, investors with net worths that could buy small countries. For the first time, they looked small to me. Because in that moment, Ellie's courage was more valuable than their billions. 8 minutes remained. I pivoted into specs, median latency, battery life, machine learning models for multilingual output. The engineer in me unfurled like a flag. Graphs animated behind me, crowding the dark with data points that sang one message, scalable, affordable, life-changing. Hands raised for questions before I even opened floor time. A man in an Italian suit tried to slip me a business card mid-slide. I shook my head gently and pointed him to the Q&A session afterward. Somewhere near the back, a ripple spread, people standing to see. At first I thought Garrett Kincaid had arrived early. But the cameras revealed something else. Attendees were rising out of their seats, one by one, until the entire auditorium formed a silent, standing tide. My throat seized. They weren't leaving for lunch, they were standing for WhisperLink. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from if this felt familiar. I finished with a simple request, help me make silence obsolete. The timer flashed 0. I bowed my head, and the hall erupted. I glimpsed Kincaid's entourage frozen in the doorway, jaws slack. For a heartbeat, the richest man in the building was a footnote to a nobody from Cleveland. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I should have felt triumphant right then, should have soaked in the applause like sunlight. But victories rarely arrive clean. As I left the stage, I spotted Coach Reeves, yes, my old coach, standing by a press banner, his face drained of color. I hadn't known he'd attend. Turns out his son worked for one of the venture firms sponsoring the summit. Reeves cleared his throat and managed, Rachel, that was something. The same mouth that once told me I wasn't cut out for greatness now struggled to form praise. I wanted to hate him. Instead, I surprised myself by feeling free. Forgiveness, it turns out, is the loudest mic drop. The investors' lounge buzzed like a beehive on caffeine. Representatives from 7 funds circled, offering numbers I'd only dreamed about. Yet my focus narrowed on one trembling email notification. Hi Rachel, I saw the live stream, can you call me? Mom. She'd never said the words outright, but I knew she thought I should have picked a safer path. I stepped outside, letting coastal fog cool the sweat on my neck, and dialed. She answered on the first ring. Sweetheart, she breathed, your father and I were so proud. Wind rattled my earpiece, but I heard her sniffle. All the years of pawn shop Christmases, of side jobs to pay tuition, of late-night calls where I lied that everything was fine, they crystallized into that one fragile sentence. The next 48 hours blurred. NDAs, negotiation tables, video interviews. Kincaid asked me to join him on stage for a fireside chat after his keynote, calling WhisperLink the future of humane technology. I accepted on one condition: he would match whatever seed fund I closed for a non-profit program distributing devices to underserved schools. His eyes widened, then he nodded. Billionaires love a good PR hero shot. I was happy to play along. Ellie's classmates would get their voices back. The night before final contracts, I sat alone in my hotel room, prototype resting on the pillow beside me. I thought about all who still lived in enforced silence: kids with cerebral palsy, stroke survivors, war refugees coping with trauma-induced muteness. My tiny victories were sparks. I wanted a wildfire of change. In the mirror, my reflection finally looked like someone who could start one. Contract signing took place in a glass atrium overlooking the bay. Sunlight scattered across the table where my lawyer, 2 investors, and a philanthropic foundation rep gathered. I clicked the pen. Somewhere overhead, gulls cried, "Freedom notes." As ink met paper, I whispered, "For everyone they said would never make it." And the voice inside WhisperLink answered, perfectly clear, "We made it." The pen's click still echoed in my ears when a reporter shouted my name from across the atrium. I turned, blinking in the bright bay light, half expecting the sound to dissolve like a dream. Instead, a forest of microphones sprouted around me. Questions flew about valuations, projected units, even rumors of an acquisition by Kincaid Labs. I answered what I could, deflected what I couldn't, and kept my eyes on the horizon where fog braided itself over the Golden Gate. The bridge looked exactly like the future, steel pinned to stone, disappearing into cloud but held fast by cables of faith. That night I couldn't sleep. My brain ricocheted between triumph and terror. What if the mass production sensors failed? What if competitors reverse-engineered my design before we shipped? What if the weight of expectation crushed Ellie's sweet hope into silence again? At 3 a.m. I padded to the balcony in hotel slippers, shivering in the Pacific chill. Below me, headlights traced graceful ribbons along the Embarcadero. I slipped WhisperLink on and let my thoughts flow. I'm scared, but I'm ready. The device spoke for me, its voice a gentle hush against the city's hush. Just then a text chimed, Ellie's bedtime selfie, cheeks dimpled, her own WhisperLink perched like a tiny diadem above her ear. She'd scrawled beneath the image, "You got this, Auntie Ray." I whispered back thank you, and the device sent it as text because she'd long ago programmed an auto-transcriber for our late-night chats. Leave it to an 8-year-old to make communication seamless. Morning brought the first tremor. My COO for hire, Devon Shah, a manufacturing savant, stormed into the conference suite with a grim face. He slapped a printed email on the table. Another company had filed a provisional patent on neural signal wearable speech synthesis the night before. Their lawyer claimed years of prior art. I knew the name, Vox Omnitech, a conglomerate infamous for buying small innovators just to bury them. Classic suppression play, Devon growled. If they can stall you in litigation for 8 months, they launch a cheap knockoff first. My veins iced. 8 months was a lifetime in hardware. But I forced myself to breathe. Coach Reeves once drilled a rule into us: panic wastes oxygen. I said, we fight and we sprint. File our evidence of conception dates. And we double production speed. Devon's eyes widened. We haven't even chosen a fab. I answered, we will buy dinner. The next 64 hours spun into a blur of red-eye flights to Shenzhen, coffee-brewed bloodstreams, and huddled negotiations in neon-lit factories that smelled of solder and hope. I slept on conveyors. I ate instant noodles balanced on PCB reels. When an inspector cited inconsistent shielding adhesion, I pulled on anti-static gloves and demonstrated the proper epoxy ratio myself. Word traveled fast. The American founder in the Navy blazer could outwork her own engineers. By week's end we had a contract, 10,000 units, rush order, with an option for 50,000 pending quality tests. I wired the deposit, every cent of the seed round plus Kincaid's match. If a single semicircle trace shorted, we might drown. But drowning was quieter than doubt, and I'd lived with enough silence. Back in Cleveland, the warehouse buzzed as pallets arrived. Ellie and her classmates cut a ribbon. She pressed the oversized scissors with shaky determination while the mayor applauded. Local news aired the clip in grainy HD. The anchor mispronounced WhisperLink as WhisperLink, but I still cried into Devon's jacket sleeve. Sales opened online at midnight Eastern. We watched the counter from my parents' kitchen, the same linoleum that had once chilled my bare feet while I studied SAT vocab under a single-week bull. The digits rolled, 50 units, 70, 190, then jumped in stuttering bursts, 2000, 5000, site crash. Our server host texted holy traffic. We scrambled a mirror site. By dawn every unit was gone, plus back orders for the entire option batch. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred into star fields. Don't forget to like and subscribe if seeing impossible numbers ever made your heart cartwheel. Vox Omnitech struck back fast. A cease and desist letter, thick as a novella, arrived by courier. Their lawyers claimed my neural language model infringed on an algorithm they'd acquired with a defunct biotech startup. Our counsel warned me, they'll aim for injunction. They win, your assembly lines freeze tomorrow. I drove to the elementary school instead of the law office. Ellie sat at lunch, sharing jokes with a boy named Marcus who'd lost speech to muscular dystrophy. Both wore prototype Gen 2 headbands, wires tucked under rainbow stickers. Marcus's digital voice squeaked a knock-knock joke. Ellie's device answered the punchline. Their laughter, tinny, garbled, perfect, flooded the cafeteria. The injunction hearing opened in a wood-paneled federal court, fluorescent lights buzzing like gnats. Opposite counsel hammered me with diagrams, timestamps, sneering insinuations that I'd borrowed code. My stomach flipped with each accusation. Then our lead engineer, Tomiko, stepped up with a thumb drive. She displayed lab notebook logs timestamped 3 years prior, neural net weight matrices unique to WhisperLink, and a video of my niece's first high. The judge leaned forward, misty-eyed. If this part hit you hard, I whispered to the audience of reporters huddled behind benches, leave a comment and tell me what you would have done. The injunction request was denied. Outside, microphones swarmed again. This time, I lifted Ellie onto the podium. Her wearable glowed soft blue as she said, clearer than I'd ever heard, thank you for fighting for kids like me. The clip went viral in under an hour. 2 weeks later, a Fortune profile dubbed me the startup David slinging stones of empathy at Goliaths of greed. Orders multiplied. VCs dangled Series A term sheets fat with zeros. But I remembered pawnshop Christmases and told Devon we'd build profit into subsidies. For every WhisperLink sold at retail, one would be donated to a public hospital. He ran numbers, whistled, then nodded. Margins thin, he warned. So were my childhood walls, I answered. We'll be fine. Our office moved from my parents' garage to a sun-drenched floor in a renovated factory downtown. Exposed brick, skylights, whiteboards crammed with neural mapping doodles. I hung Coach Reeves's quote, "Some people just aren't cut out for greatness," above my desk, letters carved in steel, to remind every intern why we burned midnight oil. But success, like winter rivers, hides thin ice. During beta rollout, a batch of batteries overheated. One device smoked during a therapy session, scaring a child and sending her mother into a tearful panic. No injuries, but headlines shrieked dangerous defect. I halted shipping, recalled units, posted a live stream apology. Stock option hungry advisors begged me to spin the narrative, blame suppliers. I refused. It's my name on that circuit, I said. We fix it or we die trying. We traced the fault. A supplier had swapped spec-grade lithium cells for cheaper cousins. I confronted their CEO via video call. He shrugged, saying cost pressures were just business. That night Devon and I drafted new supply contracts and ate chicken biryani from cartons at 2 a.m. The set reminded me of warehouse shifts when I'd crash on his couch, back before titles and valuations wedged space between us. We shared silence so comfortable it felt like home. The recall cost us $6 million. To cover payroll, I mortgaged the Cleveland office, sold 15% equity to a health tech fund, and postponed my own salary indefinitely. Vox Omnitech smelled blood. They launched a glossy commercial for their knockoff Echo Speech band, priced a third lower. But users posted side-by-side videos. Echo Speech lagged, mistranscribed, froze. One clip of a dad begging the device to say I love you racked up 12 million views and broke hearts worldwide. Comments flooded. Stick with WhisperLink. Trust the one that cares. The net swung my way when the FDA fast-tracked our medical-grade certification. Echo Speech failed Phase 1 safety. Their stock tanked. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. Truth is, schadenfreude tastes sour. Victory built on someone else's pain still carries smoke. Summer stretched hot and breathless. We shipped 40,000 units. Hospitals in Nairobi and Manila placed orders. I flew to a rehab center in Atlanta to watch a stroke survivor speak his wife's name for the first time in 2 years. He wept. She collapsed into his arms. Cameras clicked. My knees nearly buckled under the responsibility of the moment. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from if this felt familiar. Autumn brought invitations, keynote at MIT, panel at Davos, a primetime interview with a journalist known for filleting CEOs. Before the camera rolled, she hissed, "I'm told you're too soft for the big leagues, prove me wrong." I answered every barbed question with raw stories of Ellie, of Marcus, of the dad in that viral clip. When the segment aired, viewers lit social feeds. We need more Rachels, fewer sharks. By December, WhisperLink revenues eclipsed projections. But money can't buy minutes, and I'd been spending mine like confetti, until Dad had a minor heart attack. I flew home on Christmas Eve, found him gruffly insisting he was fine while Mom hid tear-puffed eyes behind cookie trays. Late that night I sat at Dad's bedside, hospital beeps steady as metronomes. He patted my hand, voice raspy. "Kiddo, you made it." I shook my head. "I'm making it, Dad." Present continuous. Grief and gratitude braided like ivy. In the quiet I promised myself to recalibrate, guard the human moments as fiercely as the patents. Work could wait an hour while I held Dad's calloused fingers. January delivered news bigger than revenue. The United Nations selected WhisperLink for a pilot in refugee camps. Neurolinguistic diversity off the charts, trauma higher, resources scarce. We would train local techs, distribute devices, document outcomes. I recruited a field team of engineers and linguists. I joined the first rotation in Lesvos. The camp smelled of sea salt and diesel. Tents flapped like exhausted lungs. Children's eyes held storms older than planets. We set up a makeshift clinic under a tarpaulin. The first patient, a girl named Amina, hadn't spoken since witnessing her village bombing. I knelt, fitting the headset gently along her hairline. Power LED blinked green. We waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Then text scrolled on the tablet, "I want my brother." Her mother keened, a sound part bird call, part sob, as if pain turning into words reopened the wound so it could heal. I swallowed tears that tasted of the Aegean. That night I wrote field notes by headlamp. As ink bled through thin pages, I realized the device was no longer just mine. It belonged to every silence it shattered. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Vox Omnitech filed Chapter 11 2 months later. Their assets went to auction. We bought the remnants, mostly empty labs, and turned one into a non-profit R&D hub for assistive tech hacks dreamed up by kids themselves. We named it the Ellie Forge. Spring burst with dogwood blossoms and one final surprise. Garrett Kincaid announced his retirement and recommended me as keynote speaker at next year's Global Impact Summit. Same stage, But this time no billionaire waiting in the wings, just me, a trailer park girl from Cleveland. The night before the speech I walked the empty auditorium, fingertips grazing velvet seats. Memories sparked, sweaty palms, countdown timer, impossible hush. I slipped WhisperLink on and asked myself, what does greatness mean, really? The device printed my thought onto a ghost-lit screen, offering your voice so others can find theirs. I stepped to center stage, looked up at the halo of spotlights, and whispered, "Thank you, Coach Reeves." Then I added, aloud, so the rafters heard, "We made it, and we're just getting started."